Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. We are going to continue our discussion on how to proceed when someone you know, someone you're caring for, or even yourself, you're starting to notice changes in cognition. So is it memory loss? Or is it something else? And that is what we talked about last week. And then we also talked about who is the right person to begin that discussion with. And we pointed in the direction of the physician. And now in this podcast, we're going to be talking about whether or not Medicare pays for cognitive assessments and consultations, and also what kinds of testing the doctor will utilize to determine whether it's a diagnosis of dementia or a medical condition or maybe a medication that you might be taking. And then I've got some great news on the horizon for us in 2024 now. And so that'll be fun to talk through. But sometimes people don't pursue diagnosis when it comes to dementia. They think, why do that? And I'm going to discuss the reasons why it is worth pursuing the diagnosis. If it is dementia, you need to know. If it's not dementia, sounds like there could be a fix. So why not proceed? But there will be boulders in your way because of our healthcare system and because of training and knowledge and skills. And then, of course, our medical insurance. So I always want you to have the best information possible so that you know the direction you need to go. And when one of those boulders comes in front of you, you know how to sidestep it so that you can keep the ball rolling, so to speak. So the question for today is, does Medicare or your medical insurance pay for cognitive assessments and consultations? And yes, your medical insurance should pay for well visits. It should pay for consultations related to diagnosis. It should pay for your diagnostic testing, and it should also pay for your cognitive testing. In fact, many times when they go to see their physician are asked cognitive screening questions as part of the annual Medicare wellness exam. Those questions could sound like this. What is the date today? What is the day? What is the year? Can you count backwards from 100 by 7? The physician may also say, I'm going to give you 3 words. Remember them, and I'm going to ask you them later. if you are wearing a watch, look at your watch and tell me what time it is. Or if they're not wearing a watch, can you look at the clock and tell me what time it is? Sometimes the person being tested would need to draw a clock and put the hands on the clock. And then the physician might then ask, what were the words that I asked you to remember? This all sounds pretty easy, except for me, the part about counting backwards. I'd have to really give that some thought. And then also bear in mind that so few of us now moving forward in generations and what's being taught in school, I think they're going to have to change that question, because our kids are not always learning how to draw hands on a clock. And I remember being in school and we spent a lot of time on that. So I'm just telling you that those could be some of the questions you're going to be asked if you want to start practicing them. But in reality, physicians use a combination of diagnostic tools. They'll look at your medical history and other information to confirm a diagnosis of dementia. And these tools would include cognitive screening and assessment tools that would evaluate a person's memory, their recall, language recognition, and the ability to follow instructions. Some of the tests that we have used at the company I work for are the mini mental exam. It's a 5 to 10 minute test that assesses multiple aspects of cognitive ability. So testing is not long. There is also a mini cognitive test. It's a 3-minute test that evaluates recall, includes the clock drawing that I mentioned. There is also the General Practitioner Assessment of Cognition test, and it combines the clock drawing test. It has the mini cognitive test and sort of an informant interview portion. And then this one I had not heard of, but it is called the Roland Universal Dementia Assessment Scale. And it's a short cognitive screening instrument that designed to minimize the effects of cultural learning and language diversity on the assessment of baseline cognitive performance. Probably why I haven't heard of that one being used that much. Now, there is also brain imaging being used to try to determine if there is a diagnosis of dementia. Magnetic fields and radio waves produce detailed images of body structures, including tissues, organs, bones, and nerves. And you're familiar with these tests: MRI, a CT scan, a PET scan, the diffusion tenor imaging, or a functional MRI. There is another test that can be used, which is called SPECT, or single photon emission computed tomography. There will be laboratory screening tests that the doctor may order, which would include a complete blood count, serum electrolytes, serum calcium, TSH, and glucose. And other investigations that may be useful include measures of renal function and liver enzymes, as well as an ECG. Blood tests, checking for other conditions that could be causing symptoms such as thyroid problems or vitamin deficiencies. A psychiatric evaluation may be recommended to determine if depression or another mental health condition is causing or contributing to a person's symptoms. And then genetic tests were also mentioned as something that the doctor might use, but I would ask if that is covered by medical insurance. And if you're just getting this information off the internet, be aware that sometimes genetic tests are being sold, but they could be scams. So make sure that if this is coming from a professional that you trust, I think I would double check to make sure that it is covered by insurance and what they're hoping to show from that genetic testing. Now, this was interesting, and I've heard of this, but I haven't seen it done, so I am only telling you what I know. And there is a 2-finger test that the physician will use, and they will hold up two fingers and they'll put them in a position, and then they ask the patient to duplicate the way those fingers are arranged. And apparently that will indicate that there could be a diagnosis of dementia. But quite frankly, I would like a little bit more information than that, even though it sounds so simple. Now, those of you who've been listening to me know that I'm a patient advocate. You know that I like to educate people on best practices. And if someone you know needs cognitive testing, I hope that you will put yourself in the place of the person that is being tested and consider the following items. Can the person that is being tested see and hear the person administering the test? Now, I know that you think that's odd, but I hope to have someone on that can share their experience of having someone they know being administered the test. And that test was administered with their back to the patient. And remember that during COVID, when mask wearing was at its highest, mask prevents people from being able to see your facial expression and reading your lips to make sure that they have heard the question correctly. What time of day is best for the person being tested? Arrange the testing for that time frame. Make sure that the person being tested has had their medications and is not hungry or tired and has been to the bathroom. You also want to make sure that the environment in which the testing is being given is non-threatening. It is quiet and without distractions. If I was being tested, I do not want it done when I am in the hospital with machines going off and whirring and making noises in the background, people coming in and out of the room that I do not know or recognize. I would not want to be straining to hear someone talking and giving me questions that I need to answer, possibly even in a language that I am not very familiar with, trying to distinguish the way they are speaking. Plus, I would not want to be assessed and tested at my worst when I'm experiencing a health crisis or I am on a new medication. Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor.
At Family Partners Home, we help residents maintain dignity while promoting well-being. Residents receive 24/7 supervision and care in a home-like setting in assisted living homes that are located in residential neighborhoods. Each home is a single-family home designed and built specifically for those with dementia. For more information about Family Partners Home, 314-686-4468, online at familypartnershome.com. It feels like home. It is a home.
Let's return to the podcast. Dementia is the seventh leading cause of death, but over 60% of the population are not diagnosed as having dementia. Some clinicians and patients have the mindset, what's the use? Nothing can make it better. And that is where more training, better diagnostics, and targeted medications really could make the difference. Why pursue a diagnosis of dementia? Number one, and most importantly, what if it isn't dementia? What if we just think it is, but there's something else going on behind the scenes or under the surface? Number two, if it is dementia, what type of dementia is it? You know, it's really important that you understand that there are different types of dementia. There's early onset dementia, such as frontotemporal dementia. There is Lewy body dementia. There's vascular dementia, Parkinsonian dementia, alcoholic dementia, and Alzheimer's dementia. When you have a diagnosis, then you can get educated on that form of dementia, and then activities and interventions can be focused on helping a person with that kind of dementia. Early diagnosis helps you to get the information, the support, and to be able to make adjustments that could be helpful before crisis mode happens. Just like there are different types of dementia, dementia affects people uniquely. Years ago, the company that I was working for had a client that lived in an independent living retirement community, and she did have memory loss. But you know what? She got dressed every morning. She took out her trash. She took part in meals and activities, but she had no recall that the nurse had just come in and given her her medication, and she would call repeatedly for the nurse. But she was able to live successfully in an independent living community for a very long time. Please remember this, that many, many people who are diagnosed with dementia can function quite well, even with cognitive decline. Now, the Caregiver Club interview gave us this tip. Jody and Alicia both said, there is still a lot of living, but you might have to do it a little differently. And being diagnosed gives you the freedom to share what you know with others and for people to understand what is happening to the person you're caring for. When people understand what's going on, they can then lend support to you. You also have better access to appropriate medications or interventions and governmental programs that are designed to support those living with dementia. You might be able to find caregiver grants through local and national organizations, plus care navigation support, counseling, and support groups. I think this is very important too as you continue to keep the ball rolling and try to get a firm diagnosis on what is going on. And this is, you will have time to gather and update any legal documents you might need. Who will become the durable power of attorney if your loved one is not able to fulfill that role? Do you have a living will? Do you know what your loved one or the person you're caring for, or even yourself, have you made those decisions? There will be medical documents that you will need to have amended, advanced care directives, and whether or not to call 911. Do you have a do not resuscitate order posted at home? Is that your wish? Is that not your wish? Do you have a list of medications that are being taken and a note on your refrigerator that says, I suffer from a cognitive disorder, please call so-and-so, or the person I'm living with has a cognitive disorder decline, please call so-and-so. That is very important. You will also have insurance policies where you need to have access to the data and that you are on those documents to assist with decision making, and that you're the one to contact in case more information is needed. The next time you change insurance, make sure that you're allowed to help make decisions regarding those policies, and that includes your medical insurance. I had a friend who always met with her advisor on what medical insurance to get, and her husband met with his medical advisor on what medical insurance to get. And it dawned on her after a hospitalization that it's important that they each had their names on each other's policies so that they were recognized as someone who helps with decision making, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to make a change to those policies. Okay? So very important that you are prepared and ready for what could be coming. Financial documents. It's very important that you protect yourself from risk by making sure you are the decision maker on all accounts and policies. I just got a new phone, and I thought that our phone plan was put in my name and my husband's name. Well, it wasn't, because I wanted to do something to the plan and I found out I couldn't do that. The TV plan, same thing. So don't wait for a crisis. This is a good time to start planning and making sure that you have the ability to make those decisions and be on those, whether it's financial documents or whether it is technology, insurance, whatever. It might be important for, especially if your loved one is out and about, the community, driving still, and yet suffering really very minorly. But should they go into the bank and not know what they're doing and able to withdraw funds, I would think it might be helpful if the bank knew that your loved one might suffer from dementia and to call you if they were making a transaction. Also, having a record of passwords for banking, for social media, and medical records, it just makes sense. And then another thing that is helpful is to prepare for any home modifications that might help the person living with dementia to be successful. So there's a whole lot of things that you can do at home. Some are very simple. Some are going to be affordable. Some might cost a little bit more. But for example, lighting that doesn't cast shadows, leaving the lights on so that the person with dementia doesn't see something that isn't there. Have a calm environment. Toss the throw rugs, because sometimes gait is impaired when people have dementia. You might also consider a tracking device if your loved one has a tendency to wander, or like I said, is still living a very full life and is leaving the home. But what if they get confused? Or what if they were supposed to be home and now they're not home? Having a tracking device allows you to monitor that, but also an identification bracelet or necklace with contact information in case they would need help getting a home. It is also important that, as I said, to put information on the refrigerator, because that's exactly where all the emergency personnel will look. But I will let you know, based on my experience, that out-of-town children who work and have children of their own could be in a bind to get to you in case there actually would be an emergency. So I have talked with folks whose loved one does have dementia. Their kids live out of town, and they look at me and they say, well, I don't know what to do if. And I said, well, I can help you figure that out. And then we talk it through. I say, the company that I work for has a caregiving agency, and all we have to do is to know you. We need to get to know your husband or your wife. We need to do an assessment so we know what their current state is. And then we're going to put this information in our file. And then you give our name to your adult children. And when and if you go to the doctor's office and they say, you're going to get admitted to the hospital, you got to go now, and you're worried about your loved one at home, now you've got a plan. So take the time to get to know a caregiving agency that could stand in the gap until your relatives or the people in charge can get to you, and that your loved one is taken care of, so that you don't have to worry that they're walking around the house anxious and disoriented, wondering where you are because you didn't come home. So this is why pursuing a diagnosis is very important. Let's take a moment to hear from one of our sponsors.
Do you want assisted living services but don't want to leave your home? Call Continuum at 314-863-9912. Our professional team has 20 plus years of experience and will help you create the perfect care solution that meets your current and future needs. Continuum supports independence at every stage of life. Call 314-863-9912 for a free consultation or visit us at continuumcare.com.
Let's return to the podcast, and I'm going to tell you a story that actually happened and the benefit of having those relationships. So the company I work for has an adult day program, and one of the participants was advancing in her dementia diagnosis. Her husband was obviously getting older as well and becoming less able to care for her. So he had done some research and had told a community that very soon he was thinking about making the transition from the day program to a small home model of care for his wife. On this particular day, he had dropped his wife off. He had gone home. And when the day center was getting ready to close, he did not come and pick her up. And I know that you're going ahead of me now and can figure out the rest of the story. But a friend of his went to check on him and he had passed in his chair. So what happens next? You have a daytime service that's going to end. You have no responsible party coming to the day center to pick up their loved one. What do you do next? Well, fortunately, like I said, I also work for a company that has a caregiving service. So because we already knew the client and we had billing information and got authorization from the power of attorney that would step in when the husband was not able to make decisions, we were able to then get a caregiver in place that took the participant home and stayed with her until out-of-town family could arrive. That was a wonderful transition, and the family was so grateful. They kept the caregiving agency Continuum in place while they got everything ready legally, financially, and informed the community that the husband had chosen that they were ready for their aunt to move in. So these things happen all the time. The question is, are you prepared? Do you want to be prepared? There are solutions, and this is the benefit of knowing what the diagnosis is and then being able to plan accordingly. Okay? So we're professionals. That's why you consult professionals, is because that probably would have been very hard for the average person to figure out, but not hard for the professionals. Well, here is the reality. People with dementia often have multiple chronic conditions and receive fragmented care. And this often leads to high rates of hospitalization and emergency department visits. They also may have behavioral health symptoms and often need 24/7 care supervision. There is a new program called Guide that was signed into order by President Biden that began April 1st, 2024. And this Guide model focuses on comprehensive coordinated dementia care and aims to improve quality of life for people with dementia and to reduce strain on their unpaid caregivers. This program will enable people with dementia to remain in their homes longer, delaying or possibly eliminating the need for long-term care placement, therefore improving the quality of life for those with dementia and their caregivers. It will achieve these goals through Medicare payments, a government program for a comprehensive package of care coordination and care management, caregiver education, and support, plus respite services. This is truly good news. I want you to be aware of that. It's called the GUIDE, GUIDE model, and it will be rolling out in your area. And there are probably local organizations who are in the process of receiving this grant money and trying to figure out how to put this into place. So that is the news that I want to leave with you today. Everybody understands that this is something that we need to get in front of. From an association point of view, from a medical point of view, from a social point of view, and there just aren't enough services and people with knowledge and experience. So I hope that this has been edifying to you today and encouraging and will help you if you are stuck. My caregiver tip for today is to seek your physician's input and bring examples of where you are seeing the cognitive struggles. If possible, try to note or pinpoint when these changes started or when you started to notice the changes. Can you tie it back to a medication, a surgery, an inpatient hospital stay, or rehab stay? Are you aware of bowel habits or urine retention? Give specific examples of how the cognitive deficits are affecting their daily life. Doctor, my loved one forgets to eat. If I wouldn't say it's time to eat, they wouldn't have a clue and would never eat during the day. Maybe they're going to the bathroom and they're just standing there and forgot why they went there. Maybe they went to drive to the store, but they got lost, someplace that they go all the time. And ask if they do cognitive testing and how to get started in that area. As always, caregivers, thanks for all you do. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.